So my subject line to the CRO was Toby is Australian plus deep dives in pipeline in quotes to show that I was pulling it from his quote plus Sam sales. He knows the first line. He knows the second. He has absolutely no idea what the hell Sam sales is, right? In theory. And so he's going to open up the email. Open, meeting booked with the CRO of this really prestigious company in 19 minutes.
Welcome. We got through all the tech problems, Sam. We figured out how to be here. It's going to be such a good conversation on social selling with AI, and I'm just pumped to be here with Sam, and I'm going to give a quick background with Sam, and then we'll turn it over for a really fun conversation that we have in store, and happy to answer any folks' questions. But before we dive in, for folks that might be newer to this community, welcome. We really have built this community around making sure that folks in the go-to-market space can have others to ask their urgent, burning questions and really get answers from experts such as Sam. And today's perfect time for this conversation because we actually just relaunched our community today, now calling it the 10X community. So that you can help 10X your go-to-market skills. And so, Sam, I'm going to embarrass you a little with a quick background, and then I will turn it over to you to give me the real story of the background. But for those of you who don't know Sam and didn't see her on LinkedIn last week, she just passed over 100,000 followers for Sam Sales. She's the founder and CEO. She spent over 15 years in enterprise sales. She's done a lot in her career, such as breaking over 13 sales records, and she's been named a top 100 global sales leader of 2023, top 50 women in revenue, which is my favorite, top 20 women in sales leadership, 100 best LinkedIn influencers. This list is really, really, really long, which is incredible. And so, Sam, so excited for this conversation. Before we dive in, can you tell me a little bit about who you are?
Oh my gosh. Hi, you guys. One, thank you so much for having me. Alexa, it's so great to be here. And thanks to your whole team at Focus for making this such an awesome experience. We're so excited to be here. Thanks for all the kind words and background. I'll say just a couple of things who I am outside of all that. I was originally born in Switzerland. I'm a new mom still, I think almost 9-month-old. So still a new mom. I'm married. I live just outside the Washington, D.C. area. So whoop, whoop for anyone that's in the suburbs like me. I just moved to Vienna. And for those of you who have attended a lot of my webinars in the past and you're looking backwards and you see where is the blue wall and the standard thing, that is why I have moved. But I've been in sales forever. I'm really passionate about a lot of things, philanthropy, financial literacy. I'm also a dog mom, and I have quite a bit of a lead foot. I have 39 speeding tickets on my record. So urgent bird gets the worm indeed. One of the things I'm always not shy to talk about, but I do like to go fast. But that's me in a nutshell. And I worked at LinkedIn before I got to sales and before I started this company. So I'm always been really passionate of LinkedIn in general, social selling, what it can do and how it can help you stand out as a leader, as a seller, as an interviewer, and all sorts of things. So excited to talk about all things today.
That was such a good intro. And from now on, I'm going to ask people on interviews how many speeding tickets they have, because maybe there's a correlation there with the speed of execution.
I know. I couldn't beat Kyle Coleman's registration record for today, but the one thing I know, the champion trophy I will hold on to is not a city ticket. So
that's my favorite intro of all time on this podcast. So take us back to starting Sam Sales. How did you go from just giving some friends advice to founding your own company?
Yeah, so I started Sam Sales about 5 years ago, just over 5 years ago, in fact, and built it to an almost all women, a fully all women team of almost 20, in just over 5 years and almost 240 clients. And I think one of the things that's interesting about kind of my sales background is that one, I've never been formally trained in any of the sales methodologies. So for those of you guys that have gone through Medic, MedPick, Spin, Challenger, all of that, I've done all that research, I've read it, but I've never gone through any of the formal trainings. And so you might think, well, Alexa mentioned 13 sales records broken. How did you do it? I really did it all by kind of relying on my gut instinct, thinking about how to sell in ways that just, used manners, thought about our buyers, went above and beyond, used social selling, etc. And then when I got to the end of it, I just kept breaking all these records that I thought, well, maybe I can do something differently. Maybe instead of impacting one team at LinkedIn where I was at the time, maybe I can impact 2 or 3 different companies. I'm going to do the scariest thing of all, and I'm going to go out on my own and give it a shot. And I'll tell you, selling yourself instead of a product, like there's nowhere to hide. And it is the scariest thing ever, because when you're like, Alexa, would you like to hire me? And Alexa's like, I'm good. And you're like, well, okay, it's not your product that Alexa doesn't want. It's you, the human, that she doesn't want. So it is a super, super scary thing. But I wanted to start this out. I also wanted to work part-time, make half the money I made in SaaS sales before, and, just kind of live a more relaxed life. Which went out the window pretty quickly. So at about a week and a half, it took off. But it was just great to start doing your own thing and build your own company. And then I think has grown beyond my wildest dreams.
That is such an inspiring story. And I'm sure, I know this from starting a company, what you jump into early on might not be exactly what the reality is. So what has been some of the surprises or learnings in founding your own company?
I think one, it's easy to consider building a company. You build it up, you build your decks, you build your contracts, you build your website, and then it's kind of on autopilot, right? It is amazing how much work it constantly takes to update, to innovate, to reflect on what you've built, how you go to market, what your branding looks like. It's never done. So I think that's one of the surprising things is just, we don't rest on what we've built for very long, 30 days, 32 days, and then we're innovating again, or we're taking a key learning, or expanding something. Yeah. So there's a lot of work that has to get done. I think too, the surprising thing is just the impact that we can make and how quickly people were excited to not only invest in us, but then help us grow, spread word of mouth. I think my aspiration was I'm going to have 5 or 6 consulting clients. I'm going to be by myself. I'm not going to do much, in terms of growth. And it was surprising to me how quickly people wanted our support, needed our support. I think our growth has surprised me for sure. But it's a never ending, as you know, Alexa, exhausting thing, but it is also the hardest you will work in your life and the happiest you will be because you're building your own thing. It's pretty amazing.
And it's very impressive you did all of this while having a baby. I knew you were just saying that you have a 9-month-old. So kudos to you. It's extremely impressive.
Thank you.
Okay, let's switch to social selling. I see it all the time. I know it's a hot word. Break it down. What is it? Why should I care about it?
Yeah, I think it's one of those words also that's it's dated and yet nobody seems to really know how to do it, right? We've been talking about social selling for a decade. What do we do with it? What does it really mean? But I think there's a couple of things. One, think about social selling versus how you show up on the platform, on LinkedIn specifically. And this isn't the content that you post, how you engage with other people. Forget all of that. It really starts with, frankly, your profile. So what does it look like, right? And we have clients who come to us and say, somebody looked me up on LinkedIn. I don't have a profile and I thought I was done. Okay. So one, we just need to show up there. I think all of you guys attending, I suspect are on LinkedIn to begin with, but think about just a couple of different things to make sure you show up correctly. One, your picture. It does not have to be fancy. You do not need to be in a suit or be wearing a tiara. If you want to, come at it. Maybe that's your jam. If not, don't worry about it. But one, just make sure you have a picture that shows head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Not the knees and toes. Save those out. Shoulders, neck, head, right? 70% of your face is taking up the image space that you've got there. And then if you look at mine, I think I'm sitting down somewhere, but my previous picture was literally in front of a tree in my front yard. So it does not need to be overly elegant, does not need to be a professional headshot, it just needs to be updated. Think of it like your dating profile for any of you on the dating scene, right? We want to make sure that it's you within the last 5 years or so. 2, it's you by yourself. A lot of people have strong opinions on this. I want my family in there. I want all my bridesmaids for my wedding. This is your profile, not your family's profile or your wedding profile. So just have it be you and consider this is what employers, people who hire you, your colleagues, people who want to promote you internally are going to look at. Click on that picture, by the way, really quick, and you're going to see a little eyeball that shows for visibility. And one thing you want to make sure on there is that you've got your eyeball clicked, your visibility for all LinkedIn members or public. That means that anybody, whether they're connected with you or not, or as long as they have a LinkedIn profile, for all LinkedIn members can see your picture. It makes your profile much more likely to be engaged with, clicked on, and for people to connect with you. 3 other things that I'm going to scream on by that I think are really important. Your headline. So there are places where it's appropriate for somebody to say, I am CEO of, right, Alexa, perfect for you. For me, CEO of Sam Sales, we have a little notoriety on LinkedIn, so I want people to know that's who I am. But if you're an AE, if you're a leader, if you are in customer success, don't just say customer success at, partner at this particular law firm. Nobody cares about that. Talk about what it is that you do. So let's say you are a lawyer, partner at, what practice group are you in? What challenges do you solve? What problems do you solve? How do you help your customers? Use that headline to talk about what it is that you do and get a little bit more exciting in a little more exciting way. Talk about who you are at a personal level. So you'll see in my Swiss dual citizenship, overly enthusiastic, which is more of a warning than anything else, but add that stuff in so people can figure out who you are. Next, your about section. Make sure that's clear. Take a look at mine, broken down in 3 distinct sections: a story, my expertise, and who I am outside of the office. Talk about who you are. Social selling is key, right? Because one of the things that people are going to do is look at your profile before they ever engage with you. So your profile is really, really important to get right in the beginning. And then that final part is recommendations. So people are going to be pulled in by your headline. They're going to be wowed by your about section. And then they're going to say, does anybody recommend we work with you? Look at that recommendation section's key. And if you don't know what to do there, go over to samsalesconsulting.com, resources, hit Control F, type in recommendations, and find an article that I've written on every single thing you need to know about exactly how to do recommendations. But it starts with that because, trying to answer your question 6 minutes after you asked it, what is social selling? It's the art of showing up on LinkedIn, engaging with people, searching for information, using AI, using that information, right, paired with AI to make you much more productive, to help you learn faster. It's basically a 24/7 networking event, where you can grab information, you can learn about people, you can engage with them, you can join other conversations, you can do all of that while grabbing all this information to help you sell, build bridges, make connections, get people to respond to your email, and show up prepared, most importantly, for your discovery calls.
That I have just learned a ton within those, whatever that was, 5 minutes of learning about social selling. Very tactical advice that I wouldn't even thought of, like the concept of starting with your own brand and how you show up and what people say about you. It makes so much sense logically when you say it, but it's a piece that a lot of people skip over.
I'm going to tell you this too, we're so excited. We're launching a podcast in January. And so some of the guests that we've interviewed are just amazing.
Cool.
Yeah, but one of them is Danny Dunn. And if you don't know that name, he is the Chief Revenue Officer at Morningstar, headquartered in Chicago. And one of the things that I love about Danny is he talks about one key way to get his attention. And that is, if you manage to break through the noise of his inbox. So for any of you who might be prospecting into Danny and you're like, why hasn't he responded to my emails? I might have the key for you. If you send him an email that hooks his attention and he's like, this is interesting, I might want to spend time with this person. He talked about this on our podcast and then years ago when I spoke to him, but he said he's going to go to your LinkedIn profile and he's going to see what's your credibility. So before he even responds, he's going there and he's saying, who is this person? How long have they been there? Do they have an updated LinkedIn profile? If I spend time as the CRO of Morningstar, if I spend time with this person, can I ascertain not only from their email, but also their LinkedIn profile that time is going to be well spent? So we might do the hardest thing of all, get him to open our email, read it, and gain interest. And then he goes to our profile and it's a bridesmaid's picture with 17 other people and he doesn't know which one we are. It still has a link, let's say, to the old company we worked with in the URL, which I just saw on somebody at Gon's profile. What was said that? Where it says a banner where you work and your headline, but it sends you to their old company's link, not to their website. Maybe in your about section, it doesn't even talk about what you do at your new company. It talks about the old one. So you're immediately discrediting yourself because you didn't take the time to invest in your profile and make sure it's super buttoned up. Imagine showing up to a conference in PJs instead of jeans and a blazer. We never do it. Pay attention to this. It's important.
Can we though one day? I'm just kidding. We talked about that on another podcast.
Here they are. Maybe some Eberjays.
That is super, super interesting and all really incredible points. One of the misconceptions that I just learned is that you need to focus more on how you show up first versus anything that you're saying online. Are there any other misconceptions that you've thought of that you've seen or you've seen people mess up on?
I think one of the things is the way that we treat the platform and how we do outreach to our buyers, right? So we all heard of the pitch slap. That's with a P, the pitch slap. And what that basically is, right, is where we connect with somebody, they accept, and then we immediately pitch our services. So the misconception is that that is what LinkedIn is for. It's a networking event where you can go and you can just say, hey, Alexa, you look like somebody who has budget to spend. Would you like to spend it with us? This is what we do. Thanks. It's not what that is. And I think it's the quickest way to turn off our buyers. LinkedIn is a slower burn, right? Whether you're posting content and building an audience, whether you are engaging with people and trying to get them to take a meeting with you, it's a slower burn. It takes time. But what's amazing, right, is that with a few different things you can do in social selling, engaging in comments, sending smart nurture campaigns, creating your own content, you can start to build this groundswell for yourself as an expert, if you are in fact an expert, and get all of those people to come to you, right? You can go to make the ask, right, with confidence because you've already invested in them. So misconception is imagine again, the conference example. Imagine you walk up, you see your buyer across the room, you're like, hey, there they are. And you're like, hey, I'm Sam. And your buyer's like, hey, I'm Alexa. Great to meet you. And you're like, cool. We help modern organizations with email sequencing, blah, 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 blah. Would you like to buy some? We would never do that. So why in the hell do we find it appropriate to do that in a digital format, right? Instead, you can do a couple of things. Take a look at the post that I made today. You can use the content that you have on LinkedIn to create really great subject lines. I posted about a company called Butler, of course, with no E, Butler, right? That I'd never heard of before. I saw they recently got funding and I was like, here's how you go and use LinkedIn. You can connect with their CEO, with their CPO. You can congratulate them on a really cool award. You can engage with their content. There's so much you can do. So misconception is that it's a quick hit win when it really isn't. But if you spend just a little bit of time here, right? I can even tell you guys about how we won a almost 6-figure deal with this, I can say this now, with the CRO of Equifax. She's let us talk about it. With 13 minutes of prospecting, like talk about some great social selling wins there. But one, invest the time because it really pays off. Oh, and Jackie, I see your chat. I can definitely speak a little slower. It's my only flaw is how quickly I talk. Hopefully you saw the wink and you don't think I'm actually not conceited.
I mean, we did kick this off by saying that you had multiple parking tickets and we are going to be very speedy. So I think it's fitting. I'm the same. That is super, super interesting. Well, first of all, congratulations. That's incredible. And it shows the real ROI of this. Something that I think about a lot with both engaging other people as well as my own social selling is how you can feel authentic and not spammy. Yeah. And how do you talk about areas that are interesting to your audience while also remaining true to yourself and your own beliefs? So how do you make sure to do this because once you get to a scale, it's, scale and authenticity don't often, align. So how do you control that?
So I think a couple of things. Let's look at this as two different things that we'll focus on. So one is how you engage with the comments, right? Engage with people either in comments or DMs. And then two, we'll talk about the content that you post. So first, on an engagement level, you have to think about things that you can say that are authentic to you. I think the really interesting part here, though, is when you think about executives and what they're posting online, I want you to look at something. So go right now in real time, go and pull up an executive's profile who posts content online. And I don't mean, the people who are known influencers, right? Like don't look at their profiles, but look at, CRO of a company that posts some content on LinkedIn. What you're going to find is really interesting. One, they get dozens, hundreds of likes on their posts, but they get very few comments. And if they do get comments, it's usually from internal people who want visibility to that executive, who want to contribute to the conversation, or maybe an existing customer or vendor. What that means is you've got an amazing opportunity to, one, stand out, contribute to the conversation, and do it authentically. So look at what they read and think about what it is that you can say to align, to contribute, to share, mind share. Be careful to not disagree with them, even if you do, right? You definitely tactful ways to say things, but contribute in a meaningful way. There is a C-suite at Wells Fargo. She lives in New York. She has red hair. That's all I'll say. And she posts quite a bit of information about her personal life. She posts about dogs. She posts about being in New York during 9/11. She posts about diversity. What can you do to contribute to that? She's not posting about data and cybersecurity and things like that. She's posting about her personal life. So connecting with a human being in an authentic way doesn't necessarily have to do with your product and things like that. It has to do with whatever they're up for sharing. So contribute something, right? And say, I'll never forget where I was on 9/11 if you were somewhere on 9/11. I know some of us were around for 9/11. But just think about that. Like, what does that look like? What was your experience, right? What do you love about dogs, charities, DEI? I think the other thing, too, is in the DMs, contribute to learn, right? Or to teach, rather. Give them something that they can learn. Look at the post that I made yesterday in my No Makeup Tuesday video. And I basically talked about the idea of like, one of our clients is a CEO, founder, phenomenally wealthy and successful. He wanted to know, how do I get in front of the CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, of somebody at a very, very, very large hotel brand that some of us might be staying in, right? How do we do that? I've had a conversation with him. I worked with him 10 years ago. How do I get in front of him? So one, send a direct DM on LinkedIn, but then follow up if he doesn't respond and say, here's an article I recently read. I thought you would find this interesting. It relates specifically to what you were recently talking about challenge-wise on LinkedIn. There's so much that we can do to better them. It's not about us. It's not about getting our way immediately, most often. It's about contributing to the conversation and earning their attention and earning the right to ask. Last thing I'll say, just on content. So when you post your own content, you've got to think about that somebody, one, has a short attention span. So if you were brand new to trying to share authentic content on LinkedIn, it needs to be short. And what I mean by that is make a very quick point. If you write a really long post, people are going to be like, I don't know you, don't know if this is smart, don't know if this is worth my time, moving on, right? So we don't get engagement. We don't get people to stick around and read. So start with a short thing. There's one thing I wish I had known when I started my job. There's one thing that I do in every one-on-one I have with my leaders, whatever it is. But think of the content that you write. Every single time you write a post, before you hit post, just say, so what? What did I learn? What's the tangible takeaway? What's something impactful that I can use? Is there a script? Is there a tip? Is there something I can use? Don't write posts that speak in platitudes. So when we're like, you really got to go get after it. Okay, how? You need to personalize your outreach. Okay, how? Like, what do I say? Where do I go? Teach that stuff, right? But the authenticity comes from you sharing your own experiences, etc. And one more thing to add here. For anyone that's on as an SDR, as an AE, a teacher that just transitioned from teaching to sales, and you're like, I don't know anything, right? Even if you think you have nothing to contribute and that nobody wants to hear your talk, I beg to differ. Every single one of us has something to teach another person, but stay in your lane. So if you are an SDR, don't post about what CROs of modern SaaS companies should be doing, because you probably don't know that with any authority. But you do know, right? How to show up to your one-on-ones. You have things you can teach. So start there.
The point about making sure that you remember the so what is so important. And I would say it goes even beyond social selling. Like when you're communicating with your customers, when you're slacking your internal team, thinking about what is the so what is just a great communication tip that you should always have in your back pocket.
Totally. And backpacking off of that, just take a look at the emails you send. When you guys are doing cold outbound, gosh, even when you're doing things for inbound or referrals or things like that, look at what you talk about, what your value proposition is as a company, as a division, as a product offering. When you say what you do, just read that line in the mind of your buyer and then say, so what? What is it that thing helps that person do? What's the challenge it helps them overcome? Because 99.9% of the emails that we see, sellers come and say, help me rewrite this. And we say, all it is a marketing email. This is what we do. Do you want some of it? No, this is what we do. So what? Oh, so what? Well, it'll help you do this. Oh, okay. So it's going to help me overcome a challenge. It's going to help me get to something. But so what is critical? And one more thing to just tag on to that. That's so what, when you get to the so what, here's how we can help you. Here's a challenge you have. Here's how we can solve it. The most awesome thing you can think of next is the hidden or forthcoming objection. Just consider, right? If I reach out to Alexa and I say, Alexa, we can help train your teams on Sales Navigator, and teach them everything that I taught them when I was at LinkedIn. Objection. We have a customer success manager for that. We have a CSM. We don't need you. While you might have a CSM, here's how we're different. Oh, because I promise you, Alexa's not going to take the time to write me back and be like, we have a CSM. She's just going to delete my email and think it and move on with her life. So I can get around that, right? And anything that I do, I'll be better for it.
Yes. And something that someone in the audience called out was posting for the algorithm is not a good thing. Not only is it not maybe authentic, but there might be actually a risk in that. And there's kind of this cost benefit of, do I post for the algorithm or do I post for authentically? And maybe I won't see traction on this one, but I will in the next one. I don't know if you have thoughts on that. And then I want to jump into some also community questions.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. So don't post for the algorithm is right to a degree. You want to be mindful of some things about the algorithm that really will squash your ability to succeed on the platform. And I'll talk about those in a second. But being mindful that just because everybody else is doing it or just because it's the latest thing to do, right? You have to say, is this who I am? Is this authentic to my brand? You will never find me doing a video of a day in the life of Sam. You just will not do that, because I will tell you, nobody cares how I load my dishwasher. Nobody cares how I make my coffee in the morning. Two people might, but nobody does. So I'm not going to bend to that, right? I think you also have to take the kind of trends with a grain of salt, right? Is video really key? Do we want to start doing video? Maybe you do. Video is pretty great on LinkedIn. So I would say hop into that bucket. That'll probably stick around. But be mindful of the trends, right? A lot of people have fake fights on LinkedIn, and my God, whatever it is you post, reflect on that and say, if a future client or a future employer sees this, am I proud of what I've written, right? Am I proud of my CEO reads this right now and sees my work? And that's really all you have to think about. If it's not so great and you're still proud of it, well, it's authentic to you and that's okay. It's just who you are. So I think just the other thing to think about with the algorithm, right, is it's important to think about the things that LinkedIn cares about so it helps boost your post. So I'd say a couple of different things. One, I actually do load my dishwasher strategically. Thank you, McKenna. I am that person, very methodical. I want you to think about this, right? What does LinkedIn care about? LinkedIn cares about two things first and foremost. Number one, how often people come to the platform. And number two, how long they stay, which is called dwell time. Dwell time is everything. If we can get people to stick around, to scroll through a carousel, to watch a video, to read something, to save a post so they come back to it, that's signaling to LinkedIn that there's something good and they start to let your posts be seen and seen and seen. So you want to think about what we do to impact those things. And I'll tell you just a couple of quick tips here. One, there is so much debate about whether or not a link in your post impacts visibility or not. And I will tell you without a shadow of a doubt, and I'll tell you with the authority that we have a line of business at Sam Sales that writes content for executives on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is one of our customers, and that's the only thing I'm allowed to say about that. So we really, really know our stuff here. It impacts the post. The reason for that is because you are taking a link and we're suggesting to LinkedIn that you're going to take that user away from the platform. What does LinkedIn want? Users to stay as long as possible. So when you say, I'm going to take my stuff instead, LinkedIn's going to say, that's cute. We're going to make sure nobody sees this post. If you really, really, really want to kill your post, add a link with a UTM or a source code. And when you do that, it shows you intentionally wanted to bring people off. You weren't just sharing an Inc. article. You were saying, I want people off this site and I want credit for the traffic for whoever I'm supporting. So be mindful of that. Post it in the comments, just be smart. Two other quick things. Hashtags matter. The volume of hashtags matter. Lots we could say about there, but I will just say, make sure it's less than 5. As soon as you exceed 5, the 6th hashtag says, LinkedIn, I don't know who my audience is. And LinkedIn says, we know, that's evident because you're using 17 hashtags. So it'll throttle your post because it thinks you're just trying to get as much attention as possible. And then the final thing, tagging multiple people in a post. Be mindful of that with the algorithm. So if you tag one person, it's like you're giving attribution. You're citing a source, you're attributing something you read by them, something they taught you, etc. As soon as it gets to 2 or more people, what happens there is LinkedIn thinks, are you just, little ears go up, and it says, are you just tagging multiple people so that they get notifications about this post, come over, read, etc. So what it looks for is to make sure at least half of those people engage, like or comment with your post within that first hour. If they don't, it kills it, which really stinks. All of those things are kind of atypical, right? People wouldn't, counterintuitive rather, they wouldn't think that way. So you might be doing all the right things in your eyes, and in fact, your post gets killed. And I'm going to tell you one more. Reposting with your thoughts. Be mindful of that. Again, probably the most counterintuitive algorithm tip out there. But when you hit repost on, let's say we see Alexa's post, you're like, this is brilliant. And you repost it and you're like, here are my thoughts. You're actually doing Alexa almost the kindest favor. You're reposting her content to give her visibility, except nobody will see it because you added your thoughts, and LinkedIn kindly doesn't care about your thoughts. They care about Alexa's health. Yeah. And if it's your thoughts they care about, they want you to create your own organic post. So if you want to get Alexa's post to get a lot of visibility, just hit repost. That is the biggest favor you can do for any creator out there outside of adding a comment. Is just repost, no thoughts. Sandy, I bet I got you, bro. Okay. Go ahead, Alexa. I'm reading the chat. I'm literally was just slacking Sandy and Meredith being like, we have some learning to do. This is great. One other thing that's off chat, and then I swear I'll get to chat questions. There was some tips and tricks of posting on LinkedIn from a founder group I was in. And one of the things was, here's the top 10 hooks you should use. And like, if you use one of these hooks, this will make you go viral. I never did anything about it yet,
but is that something that is valid? Like the first sentence that you say, the hook, are certain things able to catch virality more than others?
Yes, I think the hook is super, super critical, and we'll talk about that. Best 10 hooks. Just be mindful with whatever you hear from other people that if you're all saying the same thing, you're not going to look like the same thing, right? And I think that's where also authenticity gets killed. Be mindful too of the hooks that they're not super clickbaity, right? I think I did one super clickbaity one and then I called out the clickbaitiness of it right after you clicked see more. But I was like, we talked to a client and they said they were shocked by something we did. And then literally afterwards I said, how's not for clickbait? People were like, oh my God. But I had a good lesson to learn to teach still there. The hook is critical. Your hook is your headline. That's it. Right. So how you pull people in, we want to make sure that the lead isn't, if you haven't heard that term before, right? Burying the lead means like 1,700 words into an article or a paper, you finally get to the point. You've got to get to the point at the very top. So your hook is critical. It doesn't need to be a hook like, here is the single greatest leadership lesson I've ever learned. Things like that can be really hokey and actually don't serve you because people are like, we don't care about it. Instead, start with the story, talk about something, right? Use an interesting hook. Like one of the ones I do quite frequently is I'll write something that a rep or a client usually says, and then the wrong thing that a rep says thereafter, right? Because people will see that and they're like, wait, I do that. Sam says this isn't good. Bye. And then they'll read. So I'm trying to hook you in with a headline. I will say too, we had a great post from somebody on our team. For those of you who already follow us, Paige is incredible and our head of marketing. But she wrote a post, right, which we broke down tactfully in one of our LinkedIn profiles of why it didn't succeed. And the reason it didn't succeed is Paige talked about a really awesome thing about daycare being available at the Olympics this year, right? A movement that was first time ever, et cetera. Except she stated the name of the person, the Olympian, in her post at the start, and nobody knew who that was, right? So instead of hooking with daycare, Olympics, who made a change, this incredible Olympian helped make a change, she stated somebody that no one knew who it was. So we've got to think about how do we hook people at the lowest common denominator of what they might know and bring them in to read the rest of the story. Those hooks are important. And why? It's because the second most important thing is getting that person to click see more. So you'll say in your post that you've got ... see more. As soon as that's clicked on, and the ferociousness of how it's clicked on impacts the impressions that you get and how quickly your post gets seen.
You know every tip and trick. It's like the amount of LinkedIn tips and tricks in your brain, it's phenomenal. You're like,
it's a little sad.
A lot of years. Yeah. Going back a little, I want to make sure I get to Shannon's question. Earlier on, you mentioned pitch flap, which I love. I'm going to copy that. Amazing. So when you fall into that trap, can it be salvaged? Like, how do you back out of that?
It can't be. And I think it's just like with anything, right? If the key is to what we always say at Sam Sales, fall on your sword, take accountability, own up to the issue. People will be so much happier to engage with you or respond back if you just say, I think I botched that a little bit and I could have done this a little bit more tactfully. There's no harm in that ownership. So do it. So let's say you send a pitch slap. And you're like, you just learned it today and you're like, son of a bee, I should have done things differently. Just go back to that person and say, you know what, on second thought, I think I could have been a little bit better than sending you a direct pitch like this. While I would love to talk to you at some point, just wanted to say sorry real quick. I'm around. I'll be investing in your content, reading what you're writing. That's it. You might find the person says, no harm, no foul. Thanks for being honest and authentic. And I'd be happy to take a meeting. And you'll be like, what the hell just happened? And then you'll go and do that with everybody, right? That your pitch slapped. But otherwise, I think what's really important, right, is just think the investment. And here's what I would tell you. Say shameless quick pitch, but on our website, shorts.samsalesconsulting.com, we have all the playbooks of everything that we run. And our least expensive one is the one I'm just about to tell you the majority of. It's called Expand the Sandbox. And this is how I won through that DM, process. This is how I won the Sierra of Equifax. And in fact, she was on our women's webinar just recently. And I was like, can we talk about this? And she was like, oh yeah, we can talk about this. So basically, I went and I found her content. She posts content on LinkedIn, and here's what I did. I added her to a list and it said, this is a person who posts authentic content. It's just not resharing like, Caterpillar relaunching their latest tractor, which I have absolutely nothing to talk about with that. But rather, she talked about her daughter. She talked about fashion. She talked about loving, particular designer, things like that, that I can talk about that I can talk about with her. So I commented. I waited a couple days. I waited till she posted again, didn't comment on that one, commented on the next one. And then I sent her a connection request. I keep seeing your content all over the place because I'm stalking you. Leave that part out. I'd love to stay in touch and can't wait to read more. That's it, right? Complimenting her content. She got lots of likes. Almost no comments as usual, exactly what I told you earlier. Then I commented 2 more times and then I just went in for the kill, right? I thought about how I could help her. And I said, you post so much content. We help executives just like you at Fortune 500 companies, just like Equifax, which I don't know if they're no, they are Fortune 500, but we help executives just like you. I wonder if I might bend your ear on how we could help your content get a little bit further reach, right? Probably a little bit different polish, said it in a tactful way. She wrote back 3 or 4 hours later, gave me her email, introduced me to the 2 top people on her team. And then we had a deal, I don't know, within a week or 2, and they're still a client, right? That stuff can go a long way. And I'm telling you, do this because nobody makes this effort. Even as much as we talk about show me, you know me, and doing your research, nobody makes an effort. If I showed you my inbox, if Alexa showed you her inbox right now, you guys would cry. It's sad. And it's all the same stuff, right? So making that effort really goes a long way. So think about how you use your DMs. And one other just quick tip, avoid the in-mail. So if that's what you're using right now, skip the in-mail. Go for the connection request, right? That in-mail, for all of you, go and look at your in-mails. And what I promise you're going to see, majority of it is spam. So when a buyer sees in-mail, unfortunately now, they think spam instead of something that can help me.
It's funny. A lot of what you say comes down to being authentic and caring and trying and putting in your work to show me you know me. And there's so many things you can remember about all the tactics and tips, but in all the answers from you, I'm hearing this level, be a human, be authentic, do your research, be prepared. And in something, oh, go ahead.
No, I mean, and I think that's it, right? Like, be vulnerable, be open, share those things. Like, people don't also always want to know how you won. This sounds mean, but they want to know how you failed. They want to know how you completely botched something. They want to know how you picked yourself back up. They want to know something that you wish you'd done differently in your youth or as a first-time leader. They want to know how the hell you started a company, raised capital, got incredible investors, right? They want to know all of those things. So those are the things that we can share. It's those stories that can inspire, teach, etc. But I think too, like, get out of your comfort zone a little if you're willing to. Like, I'll have a post that I've got planned coming up talking about my path to motherhood. And for those of you who don't know, I was 42 when I had my 42 when I had my baby. I should remember what the hell age I am. 42. But my path to becoming a mom had absolutely nothing to do with infertility. It was something different. And I'm going to share about that probably in a way that I've never shared before, because I think there's so many other people who could make use of that story, who could be inspired by that story. And so I'm going to go out on a limb and share something that, I probably wish most people didn't know about me, because I wonder what impact it can have. And if you have 514 followers or 100,000 followers, all that matters is you can impact one person with what you share. So don't be afraid, to a degree, to put yourself out there, jump off the high dive and see what happens.
I'm very excited to see that post, and it's beautiful how vulnerable you can be. And I do find when I see others sharing something a little more personal, and it's something that I'm like, oh, I can relate to that. It's something maybe I haven't said out loud or I haven't really articulated in the way you have. It can give you some feeling of like community and understanding that others are in the same. And before I get to more questions, something that you called out was the show me, you know me principle. And it's actually, as you know, we launched this new product called AI Strategy that helps with research, to use AI to consolidate all this information to actually help, what I believe is the reps actually saying, show me, you know me. Yeah. But related to that or unrelated, what is show me, you know me, and how can you actually use those principles to come up with a strategic pitch or something that resonates or something that might be a little vulnerable or authentic when kind of being a seller?
I think for buyers, there is a baseline of expectations that most sellers miss, and that is showing up to a call with even the most elementary information figured out. So Alexa, I'm sure this never happens to you, but when you're joining calls and a seller says, where are you based? And what made you join POCUS? And you're like, that's my favorite question. What made you join Sam Sales? Well, we started it. My name is in the company. But baseline research there, right? So show me you know me is showing what from the very first email you've sent to somebody to the 10th year you're renewing this same client. It's showing them that you understand who they are as a company, who they are as a person. You know something about them. Show me you know me has so many principles across how we recruit, how we apply for jobs, how we lead. Do we understand our leaders' goals? Do we understand the people that respond to us or report to us on and on throughout basically everything that we do in corporate? But at a baseline level, right, it's doing your research, and instead of sending 5,000, 500,000 emails in a week, a year, et cetera, instead think about how you can use AI. Think about how you can use this incredible product of Focus, and you can use some of that power to do research and show up in a much more authentic way in the emails you send. So I'll give you a quick example, right? In doing research on, I'll just say the CRO at SalesLoft, right? Probably somebody who gets hammered for meetings all the time. I can't even imagine what that guy's inbox looked like. SalesLoft, I think everybody knows what SalesLoft is, was acquired, right, for $2.3 billion in funding, that's it, in dollars. But when I reached out to him, I just did a quick bit of research, right? Looked at his LinkedIn profile, found that he was posting about something what he's focused on right now. And basically his last post was about how people don't invest any time in research before they reach out or when they show up to calls. And I was like, well, this is my bread and butter. He talked about how right now he was preparing for a board meeting and he was doing deep dives on pipeline. And then he also talked about he had an exchange with Toby Carrington, who's the Chief Business Development Officer at Seismic. And Toby said in the comments how he thinks people think that they're connecting with him authentically by saying, I see you're Australian. Cool. Want to buy my stuff? And Toby's like, no. So my subject line to the CRO was Toby is Australian plus deep dives in pipeline in quotes to show that I was pulling it from his quote plus Sam Sales. He knows the first line. He knows the second. He has absolutely no idea what the hell Sam Sales is, right? In theory. And so he's going to open up the email. Open, meeting booked with the CRO of this really prestigious company in 19 minutes. Same thing with the head, for some of you who follow me, you know these stories, but one of the heads of social media at Nike. She posted about going to SoulCycle and wearing leopard shorts. Leopard shorts plus SoulCycle plus Sam Sales. Open up the email in 3 hours and respond. You just have to connect with people. And I'll tell you, show me you know me, and showing up in that prepared way, doing your research and writing something different isn't just about business interests. It's not about the challenges you saw. It can be about who they are. I say this all the time, but you can't forget that your buyers are people that are human beings, not just people with wallet share. So treat them that way. Connect on something authentically. Just make an effort. If you don't follow Jen Allen, she's a wonderful follow, but she has this, sales methodology that she talks about that's called very elegantly GAS. And it's give a shit. And it really is that. Like, you just have to give a shit about your buyers. The other thing about Show Me You Know Me is doing your research in advance of discovery calls. So use what I think is tremendous about AI and the potential it gives us is its speed to knowledge. It's not scale to sending out hundreds of thousands of emails. It's speed to knowledge. So what does somebody like Alexa care about? What do my buyers care about? What is AI as it relates to this thing? What the hell is a semiconductor if you're selling to semiconductor companies? All of that information where I can help make you smarter much more quicker than before, and show up prepared. So instead of saying, where are you based? You can say, I can't believe you've been with Emerson for 23 years and man, it must be cold in Minneapolis right now. Instead of, where are you based and how long have you been? Be better than that.
It's, again, the authenticity point is so true. And my inbox is brutal. And I do love when I get a creative one where I have to double check and I'm like, sometimes we'll share in Slack, just the awful ones we get.
Get in
we'll invite you just for that channel. It is a fun, there could definitely be like a Instagram account of just like terrible outbound. Maybe we should start that, Sandy, if you're listening in. But I'm going to combine a couple questions, Sandy and McKenna's. Sandy said, what do you think about reverse engineering comments or likes? McKenna said, if you find that your post isn't doing well, is it cringy to see if a few people would go and engage or comment on your behalf? Is there a way to come back from the first hour fail?
Yeah. Great question. Reverse engineering, 100%. So when we think about and shameless plug, it's all in our playbook on our website. But when we think about doing this for our clients, right? So we'll take the chief product officer of a multi-billion-dollar company. We write content and posts for him. But reverse engineering the likes and the comments is the administrative portion that we also do. So think about this, right? If you post content and you do nothing else with it, you don't look at the likes, you don't look at your DMs, you don't look at who engages, you don't look at your profile videos. It's the equivalent of you getting on stage at a conference, saying whatever it is you're saying, and then walking out of the room. No Q&A, no connection, no accepting LinkedIn requests, nothing with the attendee list or the booth scans, nothing. We'd never do that. But that's kind of what we do on LinkedIn. So what I would tell you is as you post content, look at who your second and third degree connections are, the comment and like, whoever is anywhere within your ICP, and be open to new connections that are junior, because I'll tell you, that coordinator, that BDR, that isn't always going to be that. At some point, they're going to be somebody with budget, decision-making power. Connect with them now. But send them a connection request. Thanks for engaging with my post. Always nice to see new voices as part of the conversation. Some of you that are listening might be like, I recognize that trick. Sam has totally pulled that on me. And even worse trick, it's something on my team that's doing it, but that's okay, right? Not everything deserves the mind share of the exec. The other thing that I would say is in that you're building new connections. So if you post today, and let's say you have 5 new second and third degree connections in there that you can turn into firsts, what does that mean? Those second and thirds only liked your post because someone in their network liked your post, and then the algorithm served it to that second and third degree connection, and they found it interesting, and now they engage. So instead, by connecting with them, we are circumventing that whole first part of the process. Instead of Alexa liking my post and then somebody that she knows that I don't know seeing it and liking it, I said, I don't need you, Alexa. I don't actually know who it was, but I don't need you. And then I connect with the second and third degree connections. They're now firsts. And now the chances of them seeing my next post are higher. If I can keep doing that and I can grow my network systematically in a process-driven way, my God, your post can take off. It is not cringy to ask people to comment on your post. I very, very, very rarely do it. I might do it if we're launching, a new playbook and I just need a little help, right? I would say I probably ask for help 5 posts a year. I think that's probably fair. And I would say ask someone to contribute to the comments. Do not join a pod. Oh my God. Also, LinkedIn sees that when you join a pod and it's the same people engaging immediately, they're like, we're on to you, and then it kills your post. So build it healthfully for the long term. But once your post has died, it's died. So if, let's say it's been up for 6 hours and it's just not doing well, let it be. The only thing that will help it is, let's say if like LinkedIn News picks it up, something like that, and features it, and all of a sudden you get thousands of eyeballs on it, right? And then those people start liking, it can take another trajectory upwards. It's going to take a Herculean level of effort. So don't bother. But ask a couple of friends, especially as you're getting started. If you're scared of the engagement that you'll get, ask a couple of pals to add a comment, start the conversation, and go from there.
Something that just popped into my mind that I did not prep you this question, so going a little rogue. I remember you sent, after we've started partnering with each other, you sent myself and some other folks on the POCUS team a handwritten note, which I was totally amazed by. I was like, this is extremely thoughtful. This is honestly, everything is email and text these days. I loved it. I thought about it for a while. And that also shows just like how the vulnerability and authenticity expands beyond just being on LinkedIn. And I think about that because, especially in selling, like there's different channels and there's different ways to get in front of your buyers and build a network and work with others. Do you find that how you operate on LinkedIn can go and be kind of transferable skills elsewhere in sales throughout the journey and throughout different channels?
Yeah. I think that one of the biggest compliments we get is she's exactly who you see on. And so thinking about that it's not just this very enthusiastic, happy-go-lucky, sarcastic person. Then you meet me offline and I'm like, hello, it's great to meet you. Like, oh my God. But I think you think about the things you do, right? The way you engage with people, how you invest in them, and think about that outside of everything you do and just on digitally. But also think about things that are different. So I'll say a couple of things here, right? Those handwritten thank you notes, we send those basically to everybody, whether you were a champion and you help us do something, whether we had a friend of ours, Chris Hare, for some of you who might have seen, who helped me get over the 100,000 followers. We sent Chris Hare a sweatshirt and a hoodie that's like $75, by the way, from Sam Sales, and a handwritten thank you note to just say, thanks for being a pal. And actually, I think we did that before he even did this kind thing for us. So anyway, I think there's ways that you can do that for your champions. I think there's ways that you can do that for the deals you close. If you've closed some pretty major deals over the course of time and you haven't bothered to send a handwritten thank you note, what a difference you can make. But I'll tell you, we do those when we lose deals. So if we've been working on a deal for a long time, and let's say it's down to 2 vendors, we present in person, we do whatever, and they pick somebody else, we're still sending a handwritten thank you note. And we get some balking sometimes from sellers. So I'm like, what the hell do I be thankful for? I didn't win the deal. And we're like, well, you're at the at bat. And I'll tell you, nothing always goes as planned. So while they might have chosen another vendor, maybe something different happens. Maybe, they can't come to terms or agreement or whatever. People change jobs also, right? Maybe there was somebody else on the team that didn't want you. Well, that person really wanted you. Say thank you. And please don't make the mistake of only sending it to the C-suite or to the SVP that was involved. Everybody that was involved in the decision gets one. Is it a pain? Do you have to break out a pen and paper and find stamps? Yes. Go support your local post office and do that. The other thing is, we think about too, just like gifts that the right way. So you'll never catch me sending a note that says, Alexa, will you take a meeting with us? I'll buy you a pair of AirPods. Because Alexa will say, I can buy my own AirPods. Thank you. And that. But instead, right, maybe having a conversation, like one of the things we did was one of our buyers wrote back and said, we'll get back to you on our proposal. It's going to be a few weeks. We just need to get our ducks in a row. So we sent them a bag of rubber duckies and we said, here's a visual for you, $15 to their office. And I know this question is probably on some people's minds that like, how do I get their addresses? Don't be creepy and ask for their home address. Where do you live, Alexa? Instead, just say, we always like to keep our records updated with the best mailing address for you. Would you be willing to share it? Or in case we have something we ever want to pop in the mail to you, what's your best mailing address? Mailing. You're also going to find some people just don't want to share it. Ask once, send a reminder, and then kill it. Especially if that person is local. They may not want to give it to you because they don't want you showing up at their doorstep with a contract, which is definitely part of my sales model. But all these some easy things. So show up here in the same way that you do. Show up offline in the same way you do online.
It's such a good point. And I'll call out one of our AEs on the POCUS team. She saw on LinkedIn that one of our buyers had an upcoming race for charity. So she donated to the charity and then sent her running gels. And it went a super long way. Like, I couldn't get a meeting with her, but my AE did through this. And it just shows how that works. So I was breaking all your rules, but my AE was following them.
And this is trying to show me you know me too. Like, what an awesome thing to do. But like, listen as your buyers tell you that. One of our clients was running, I think it was a Sacramento Ironman to qualify for the Hawaii, an Ironman in Hawaii somewhere. Anyway, she told us about it, like in June. And she was like, I'm training it's in October. What an easy way to show that person you know them and to think about them. Set a reminder for, midway September and say, 1 month to your race. What are your favorite running gels? That's exactly what we did. They were some kind of really disgusting bars that she ate. But again, $8.99 through Amazon, free shipping, and a kind note. Do it. It really makes an impact. I'll steal from Jen Allen. Give a shit about your buyers. Also, hi, Tim Sansky. I see you in the chat. Okay, I'm going to stop.
One last question I want to wrap with is we talked, which is probably more than 2 minutes long, but we'll attempt. We talked so much about authenticity, but also using AI for speed to knowledge. So how do you balance that using AI versus remaining authentic?
Yeah, I think just a couple of things. So one, I would tell me all the things that I need to know about my client, right? Type in their name, company name, and say latest articles. What should I know about these people? It's going to scrape data really quickly. So instead of you having to sift through a bunch of things, it'll sift that data. It'll give it to you. It'll give you articles. You can even look at an article and say, take this article and say, what did Alexa say in this article? Digest it for me quickly. Here's what she said. Here are the main key points. I don't even have to read it while pretending like I read it. Same thing with podcasts. Give me a quick transcript of this podcast and tell me 3 points that Alexa talked about in it that I should know. Boom, 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 right? Maybe you even say, take this part and tell me what was the timestamp because I want to know more about it. Same thing just in terms of using that for what they care about. So here's Alexa, here's how long she's been a CEO, here's their funding that they just raised. What would she care about 3, 5, 6 years into running her own company? What kind of stuff would she care about? Who is she funded by? Are those our clients? Are there other portfolio companies that we should talk to that look just like Alexa? Man, you can really blow the lid off of it. Just think of the creative questions to ask. I think there's a market for all the tips and tricks of what you can do with AI because we're just starting to figure it out.
Yep. I love it. With a minute left, I want to say thank you so much. I've learned a ton from this, so much that I'm going to take back into our own learning and content and everything at POCUS. Where can people find you and learn more?
Follow me on LinkedIn. Come say hello over there. I will also say samsalesconsulting.com. Sign up for our newsletter. Comes out on Fridays. It's pretty funny. And then has all of our latest happenings, webinars, podcasts. We have our women's webinar tomorrow, totally free of charge, never recorded. The SVP of Global Sales from Dell Tech, who is also a big deal at IBM, is joining us as our guest. There's a lot of really good stuff and a webinar on Friday. So most of what we do is totally free. Come and hang out. Like every entrepreneur's dream, you don't have to spend any money with us to get value out of it.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Sam, for being here. Excited for all of our continued conversations on all of these amazing go-to-market topics. And thank you to the community. Excited for next time.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Alexa.